All right. So this is Jenna Smoot. Uh, Jenna played basketball and volleyball. And did you do track as well?
Nope, just basketball and volleyball.
Basketball, volleyball at Strasburg. And she was a really good athlete, kicked my butt several times. Uh, and she then went on to UVA, and she has been part of all kinds of different sporting events. And like I said, she worked for the Green Bay Packers for a while, the ACC, I believe, right?
Yep.
And then she's with NBC Sports. What is your exact title now with NBC Sports?
Senior Manager of Consumer Engagement.
Senior. It sounds important, even.
I don't know if it is, but it sounds important.
But yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to let you sort of tell your background and all that other stuff and what you do, and then if they have questions, we'll let them go to town with you. Sound good?
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Well, hey guys, nice to meet all of you. Thank you for having me. So to give you a little bit of background on myself, I graduated from Strasburg in 2010. I played sports there, loved sports, came from a big sports family and knew that that was probably something that I wanted to do as I got older and looked for a profession. So I went to UVA, and when I was at UVA, I majored in political science, which has nothing to do with sports, as you might imagine. But when I was there, I got a job in the athletics department and the sports information department, working on football and baseball and basketball, which I loved. And kind of that got the ball rolling. And from there, when I graduated, I went and did a year at the ACC on their digital team. And then I left there and I went to the Green Bay Packers for a year, and I worked there on their social media team, which was incredible and a really great opportunity to work for a team and move somewhere where I didn't know anyone, and sort of got me out of my element. And from there, I left and I went to NBC Sports. I started at NBC Sports in 2016. So I've been there almost 6 years now. And I was originally on the social team, working primarily on Sunday Night Football, which is one of the sports that NBC has the rights to. And eventually I sort of changed my job and morphed into more of a marketing role. So now I sit on our consumer engagement team, which is essentially consumer marketing. So marketing for a slew of sports that sit under the NBC Sports umbrella. So I have Sunday Night Football, which is the NFL, Notre Dame football, the Olympics, IndyCar, including the Indy 500, and then NASCAR as well. So a lot of varied sports, a lot of really cool opportunities. And then I also work on and lead a team that oversees On Her Turf, which is NBC Sports's women's sports brand. So it covers all things women's sports, Olympics, things like that. So that's kind of what I'm up to these days. It's a busy time for us at NBC. We had the Tokyo Olympics in 2021 that got pushed back due to COVID. And then we have the Beijing Olympics that are coming up in February, and then a Super Bowl that's coming up in February. So it's an exciting time, a very fun role, very busy role, but something I feel very, very lucky to be doing.
Cool. Now, will you be going to the Winter Olympics?
Yes, I will. Crazy to say, I'm going to probably mess these numbers up and our PR team's not going to like it, but normally we send 1,200 or so people overseas to the Olympics, but this year, just due to COVID restrictions, we're sending a much smaller contingent. So I am still going. It'll be quite the experience. I think I was in Tokyo for the Tokyo Olympics as well, which was also an interesting experience just due to all of the COVID restrictions and no fans. And I think China will be possibly maybe even a little bit more strict, just due to the Chinese government. So it will be interesting. I'm looking forward to it, though. This will be my third Olympics on site.
How did the Olympics compare with, like you said, there are no spectators? I mean, in a sense, it almost makes your all's job even more important in terms of engaging.
Yeah, it was interesting. NBC only holds the domestic rights to the Olympics. So we only broadcast the Olympics in the United States. Other countries have broadcast rights in their countries. So, Canada has someone different than us. Britain has someone different than us. So for us, we knew no American fans would obviously be there. And that is a big part of the Olympics when you're on the ground and there are fans there from all over the world. It feels very big, and it makes the Olympics, very special, bringing people together from all walks of life. And so for us, we knew that we needed to do something back in America to try to bring people and make them feel like they were there. So that was part of what I was doing on the ground there, was shooting content with the athletes. And sometimes it would be taking fan questions from back in America and showing them to athletes on the ground in Tokyo, or bringing family messages from home to those in Tokyo. We worked with the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee to create this big giant watch party for friends and family back in America. And so every night of the Olympics, we had all of their friends and family in a room down in Florida, and our cameras were there so we could show those friends and family to the athletes as soon as they won a medal, and we would roll them into the broadcast. So we really wanted to make it feel like people were still supporting them, that came through on the broadcast, and that also came through to the athletes who were on the ground.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the coolest things about the whole broadcast, was that, like, seeing the athletes react to their families back home. It really did, like, hit home. I thought y'all did a great job with that, because I knew it would be so strange because families couldn't go to see them compete, which was always a big part of, that Olympic experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, you think if you watch the Olympics, they show Michael Phelps's mom or Michael Phelps's baby or Allie Raisman's parents freaking out during her routine, and you do lose a little bit of that. But I think some of the best moments of the Olympics, a high schooler from Alaska, a swimmer, she won gold, and they showed her high school watching her race at the end, and that was crazy. And then Caleb Dressel, who was a swimmer, we cut to his family, and he just started crying, and that stuff gets me every time. I'm a sucker for that.
Absolutely. Could you briefly just tell them how all of your teams sort of work together when you, like, say, prepare for an NFL game and stuff? Because, I mean, I thought that was really interesting the last time that you talked to us last year about how, you all planned out things about how you wanted to, work together. You're all in your different, you coordinate together.
Yes, absolutely. So we have my team in the marketing department is small, but our marketing department is very large. So the way that we would put together, say, a marketing strategy or a plan for, we'll say, a Sunday night football game. What we do is we have a strategy team that works internally at NBC, and they look at data, they look at research, and they help us put together a strategic approach for the season and a strategic approach for individual events. So we'll take their strategy that maybe says we're going to hit consumers of this age range, or consumers that like talk radio, or consumers that love Bravo, and we'll work with them to figure out what exactly our plan is and who we're going after and who we want to market this sport to. So we'll get that. And then my team will work with, we say that my team is the hub, and we have different spokes. And my team will work with all of those different spokes to put together a comprehensive plan for those events. So a spoke could be the social team. It could be our creative team. We do all of our ads that you'll see running for, like, a Sunday night football game. We do all of that in-house. It could be the email team, who would send an email like, watch Sunday night football tonight. It could be the PR team, who work to help put out releases or schedule interviews with newspapers or other outlets. It could be an agency partner that we might work with. So we used to do something called the Sunday Night Football Bus, which was this really cool mobile tour bus that went city to city wherever there was a Sunday night football game. And we would work with an agency partner to help put that together. So there are a lot of different areas and departments within NBC Sports that help make everything come to life. And that is the great thing, that even outside of the marketing organization, you'll have the production team that's putting on the actual broadcast, and we'll work with them to make sure that we're supporting what they're doing and they're supporting our efforts as well. Or you'll have you could have the paid media team that's running advertisements across social. Like maybe you're on TikTok and you'll scroll up and you'll get an ad for a Sunday night football game. That comes from our group as well. So like I said, we're the hub and we sort of help organize all of that and put the comprehensive plan together. But there's a bunch of different spokes, a bunch of different verticals that help put everything together as well. So it's certainly a group effort.
Cool. All right, I have one more question, and then I'm going to ask them if they have some stuff here. All right, so 50th anniversary of Title IX. I'm going to try to interview some of our earliest athletes in the 60s here and stuff, put together a little video and stuff. But what are your all's plans? I mean, I think that's pretty. I've coached women for 30 years. You know,
Yeah, I know. I think we're working on it, but it's circled on our calendar. We're very excited, especially on her turf side, since that's true about women's sports. I think what we are working towards is some content pieces about the journey that women have been on within sports. I think there's a lot of people like Billie Jean King who really were
right.
They helped sort of create what women's athletics looks like today. So I think we're trying to do some sit down interviews with some of those women that were really instrumental in making women's sports what it is today. Certainly a long way to go still, but definitely have seen a lot of growth in that area, and we're really excited about it.
It's awesome. All right, so here's your chance. There's someone that deals in the highest levels of sports, and she's going to stuff. All right, so Rob, what's your question?
So when she was before NBC Sports, was she social media as in like Twitter, stuff like that? Is that far when you would be a social media tweets for them?
Can you repeat that?
Okay, he basically wanted to know if like what mediums of social media like you did before you went to NBC. So you were with Green Bay before, right? So
yeah.
So like what types of social media did you?
Sure. Yeah. So it's kind of it's when I was at the ACC didn't have a social team, which is kind of hard to believe now because everyone has a social team.
Yeah.
But we didn't. We had a social presence, but it was kind of. It wasn't. I would say it's not where it's at today. And so when I was there, Snapchat had just kind of launched. It was still very new, and I remember when I was at the ACC, it was sort of like managing the Twitter accounts, managing the Facebook account. I think we had an Instagram. And then Snapchat launched, and we were like trying to figure out what we were doing on Snapchat. And that was when geo filters had just come out, the things at the bottom where you can swipe and it tells you where your location is. Those had just come out. So we were making those for the ACC basketball tournament. And it's funny to see how far we've come since then. But I just remember being so proud of this little geo locator I had worked on. And then when I got to the Packers, same idea. Instagram stories didn't exist when I was with the Packers. That didn't come out until 2016. Facebook, Twitter, we had a couple different Twitter accounts. So the main Packers account, and then we had a Lambeau Field account. We had an account that was all about sales sponsorship opportunities, and then Snapchat as well. And that was something that I helped manage on game days, is Snapchat stories. So you wanted to feel like you were at the game on the field, is sort of taking photos and uploading it to that. So a lot of the stuff that exists now, TikTok wasn't around then. It was, so it was still like your basics. And I just remember Snapchat being a really big priority then.
How quick are you all to jump on the train when a new social media comes out there?
I think it depends. It depends on if it's a tool that's baked into an account that we already have. So I use Instagram stories as a good example. Instagram stories launched in 2016 when we were in the middle of the Rio Olympics. And we were already on Instagram, but we didn't have a tried and true strategy for Instagram stories. No one did. It was a brand new tool. So we had to figure out how to sort of manage this account, manage this tool in the middle of an Olympics. So by the end, of a 2-week Olympics, we had figured out what our strategy was going to be, but it took us, it was a surprise. We didn't know what we were doing at first. And then if it's a different sort of platform, TikTok, NBC Sports launched a TikTok maybe a year ago in the middle of the pandemic. And we didn't jump on it immediately. I think we wanted to figure out what our strategic approach was, what we were going to put on there, if we had enough staffing to make sure that we could run it correctly. And so I think we try to make sure that when we're jumping on a new platform, it's not just because that's the hot new tool. We want to just make sure it makes sense for us. And normally it does, but I think we're pretty measured in that approach. And we want to make sure that we're doing something, not just for the sake of doing it. We're doing it because we think it helps us meet our goals.
And so it's still about really telling the right story still at the right time in the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Who else has a question? You got one, Hannah?
Yeah, I do. Okay. So what was like the most challenging part for you, like to get where you are now?
Good question. I would say that sports on the outside can seem really glamorous. And I certainly am lucky to have the role that I do. But I do remember when I was fresh out of college, it was hard and it was a grind to find a job. And I loved it and it was fun and it was worth every single second. But, I took 2 positions in places I had never lived before. And I'd never been to Greensboro, North Carolina, where the ACC is headquartered. I'd never been to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I was taking these 1-year positions so I could sort of get my foot in the door and work my way up the ladder. And I think, that was tough for me. It was tough to move away from my friends and family. It was tough to take, to jump and just hope that it worked out. So I would say that was the biggest thing, is figuring out how to get my foot in the door and build on that. And my advice, I guess, for anyone here in this class that is interested in going into sports is it's worth the ride, but it is a ride. It is an interesting profession to be in. It's a very competitive profession to try to get a role in, but it is worth it. I think the best advice I can is just to network and meet people. And, I'll give my email address to Coach after this. And if you guys ever, want to reach out to me, please do. I'm happy to help people, especially from home. So I would say it's just, you have to network, you have to meet people, you have to try to get internships when you go to college. I know that working in the athletics department in college really, really helped me when I went to try to get a job after college. And the people that I worked for in the athletics department at UVA were really, really instrumental and helpful for me when I was then looking after school ended. So I think that was the hardest part, is, it's a lot of people that I went to college with just moved to DC or moved to Richmond or went back home. And I was out here like all over the country trying to find a job. And I think that was tough.
I'm going to brag on Hannah just for a minute. Hannah actually did streaming broadcast of Valley League this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then she became our JV football announcer this year. And now she's doing PA for the basketball games. So she wants to be an announcer in baseball. It's sort of her love. So your dad would love that. So
my dad would love that. Baseball was my love too. That was my first sport that I worked on at UVA, and that was really what got me in the door. My dad, I don't know if anyone knows this, used to coach baseball at Strasburg for a really long time.
Really long time.
Yeah, a really, really long time. And my dad taught me how to score baseball games growing up. And when I got to UVA, they needed someone that knew how to score baseball games to work for the baseball team. Normally you have to start on the smaller sport. So I would start on a field hockey or women's volleyball or softball or something like that. But because they didn't have anyone else that could score baseball games, I immediately got bumped up. And from baseball, then I went on to football, and which was fine. UVA's were not that great. And then basketball, which was awesome because basketball was really getting good when I was there. And so I would get to sit courtside for all of those games. So knowing my dad teaching me to score baseball games was ultimately what kind of helped propel me a little bit in that role.
Before we go to the next question, I am going to sort of throw in that there's a certain school in Harrisonburg that beat UVA last night.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. It's a down year. It's fine.
All right, who else has a question? All right, Rob, you got another one? What you got?
How bad did COVID protocols really hurt sports marketing, trying to get over to different sports games and stuff like that?
Okay, I'll repeat that. He's on the hyper speed there. He wanted to know how COVID has impacted your marketing.
Yeah, it's been strange. I mean, things have gotten more normal now. But when COVID first hit in 2020, the sports world stopped. And that obviously affected my day-to-day. That affected everyone in our industry, everyone at our company. And it was scary there for a while. We didn't know when live sports were going to pick back up. So, at first when sports stopped and we didn't have any live programming, what we did is we went back into the archives and the vault and we started rerunning old events. So we did, we called them like vault weeks. And so we would do a week of old Sunday night football games and old Super Bowls. And then we would broadcast a week of Olympic events and then a week of old NASCAR events. And so we did that for months. It was so strange. And, there was always in the back of our mind, like, when is this going to start? When is this going to start? Are we going to lose our jobs? And luckily sports were able to pick back up, but it still changed how we talked and marketed to consumers and the people that watch games. I mean, for so long, we, so much of what we did was on the ground. We would do activations and we would go out where fans are and talk to them in person and do, cool events. And that effectively stopped. We couldn't do any of that. I mean, the Sunday night football bus that I referenced earlier, we sort of had to put that on pause because we didn't want to the Sunday night football bus is a tour bus that you can walk inside. And it's basically no one wants to be inside squished next to another person. So I sort of changed how we had to market, and we had to think differently and come up with different approaches. And it was a good lesson, I think, for my team in flexibility and thinking differently and trying to approach things in a different way. And, I think we're in a better place now. We've figured out ways to do things safely. We've figured out how to talk to consumers in this new world that we're all living in. So it definitely affected us. I think it was certainly something I hope that we all don't have to do ever again, but probably a great lesson for all of us in stopping and listening to what people want to do and what they're paying attention to and the new platforms that they're on. Like I said, TikTok picked up, and that's a new platform that now we talk to consumers on. So I think, again, just a lesson in flexibility and being nimble. And but yeah, it affected our day-to-day drastically. I mean, I'm in an office today, but I'm still working from home almost 2 years later. So it's been a strange journey.
Right. All right. Anyone else have a question? Will, you had something? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. What's your favorite event that you've covered so far?
Okay. Great question. I've loved the Olympics. The Olympics have been wonderful. Certainly a once in a lifetime type experience. I have worked a Super Bowl. I was there when the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, the Philly special game, which was incredible in Minneapolis. But I tell people all the time that one of my favorite events that I've ever been to and worked was the Kentucky Derby. So I went to the Kentucky Derby in 2018, I think. I've only been to one, and it was far and away one of the cooler sporting events I've ever been to. Just the energy and the history and the traditions and just the sheer amount of people that are there. It's a very cool event, and I had a lot of fun at that one.
I know you told this story last year, but none of these guys heard it or whatever. I thought it was really cool last year when you talked about the surreal experience of having lunch with the Green Bay Packers, and all of a sudden, you're there with all these, famous football players, and it was sort of like your, moment of, this is so crazy. So
Yeah. When I worked for the Packers, there was a team cafeteria, and anyone that worked with the players on a regular basis, like someone on the social team, we got to eat in the team cafeteria with the team so they could sort of meet us and get to know us. And it's surreal to just sort of, I tell myself all the time, I don't ever want that stuff to not be cool. That stuff, I want it to always feel cool to me. I want it to always feel special. Going to a Super Bowl, eating lunch in a team cafeteria, going to the Kentucky Derby. I know that those are really incredible experiences, and I always want those to be cool to me. I think if they're not cool to me, I need to get out, give someone else a chance. I find myself often in rooms where I'm just like, oh, 12-year-old me would think this was awesome. And I'm really thankful for that. I think but for me, some of the best experiences have been the ones that I've gotten to share. I got my dad on the field for a Green Bay Packers game, and he got to watch a game in Lambeau. And to me, that was the pinnacle of everything I could ever want to work towards, is getting to share those opportunities with someone who I know they mean as much to.
Morgan has rubbed that one in my face a few times.
Yeah, I believe it. And I got to take my mom to an ACC tournament and a basketball tournament. And so I just feel really lucky that I've gotten to share those things with the people in my life. I got my little brother tickets to a NASCAR race at Daytona. So it sounds a little cheesy, but I am thankful for that.
Pretty awesome. Anybody else have a question for Jenna? Speak now. Nothing else? All right. Hey, you. Thank you so much. As always, you are awesome.
Of course. Happy to.
I'm going to pass along some of those links to you so you can see some of the stuff they've been doing. And if you have any tips for us, certainly please pass it on. And I will let them, I'll get the contact information from you and pass it on if they need it.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one, and happy holidays.
All right. Happy holidays. Thanks, Jenna.